Welcome to Unshakable with Human Design, the show dedicated to helping entrepreneurs use human design to shift from hustle to flow without sacrificing results. Come here to become an unshakable human and build an unshakable business according to your human design. I'm your host, Nicole. Hello and welcome to Unshakable with Human Design, everybody. I'm your host, Nicole. We're here together, just us. And today we're going to talk about manifestors. Now, this may resonate for any of you, but when you get your human design chart read or you download the chart for the first time and you read about what you are, and the first thing that we usually read about is our type. That's the first thing that we're kind of taught to go to because it's the biggest bang for your buck. 5 buckets, 5 different types. We fit into one of those, and then we start to get more differentiated as we go down. We have authority, we have profile, and we start to get more individual as we go down that list. But it starts with type. That's like the big top piece that we all start with. So there's generators, manifesting generators, projectors, manifestors, and reflectors. Manifestors make up about 8 to 9% of the population. So they are a very small amount of people. They don't represent a huge portion of the population, but they have such impact. Manifestors can really make waves, and they're here to forge new directions. They are here to blaze new trails. But when you get that, so if you've downloaded your chart and you read that you were a manifestor, did that resonate? When you heard all of these things about being a manifestor, that you are here to take charge, that you are here to forge new directions, that you are here to create impact in this world, that you have this motor to the throat center, which means that you are a manifestor in this life. You can make stuff happen, that you are creative in nature, and that largely with manifestors, what it feels like when they get what we call the creative urge, when they get that feeling like they want to do something, they will move heaven and earth to make it happen. And when we talk about that, I always say it feels like the hand of God is moving you, from what I understand from working with manifestors. It feels like, and most manifestors have some connection to that, where they'll say, yes, I do have a connection to just being internally driven, like I have to do this. My life depends on it. Like I can't not bring this thing into the world. So you hear all of that about being a manifestor, and then does it feel true? Does it feel like you? And does it feel like you all the time? Now you might have 2 different answers. So that might be like, it feels like me, but it doesn't feel like me all the time. I've had a lot of manifestors come to me and say that they don't resonate with being a manifestor. And usually what happens is if we don't resonate with our type, there's usually some conditioning at play. And today in this episode, I really want to talk about the conditioning of the manifestor, where it comes from and what we do to overcome it. Because what human design tells us, and I think that this is something that gets away from us, we get away from this, is we think that all of this stuff is inherent. We think that what we talk about in the chart, so the descriptions that we give, that we're given in the books, that we're given on podcasts, that we're given in human design readings, that they are foregone conclusions. Okay, I'm a manifestor, so therefore I'm a self-starter. I am a powerhouse. I am a trailblazer. I am an activator. I inspire others. I create impact in my life. That's all potential. It does not mean that you are there, because most of us have some amount of conditioning. Now, when we talk about conditioning, you could be repressed or you could be reactive. You could be repressed as a manifestor or as a projector or as a manifesting generator or anything. Anything in the chart can be repressed. So that's going to be more of the shrinking quality of it. And then it could be reactive, where it's overdone or it has like these big swings of volatility with it. So there's so many ways that we can look at this, but ultimately what we're talking about when we describe the types and when we describe the other aspects of the human design chart, what we're talking about is potential, okay? So it's important to understand that if the chart tells you that something is your potential, and you are not living up to that potential currently, that's not your current reality, then that's where human design is teaching us to look at ourselves a little bit differently and say, well, how do I feel connected to this and how don't I? What is standing in my way of this being my reality? Do I see any truth in this? And usually people see some truth. There's something internally that it strikes a chord with them where they say, I know this to be true, but I just don't feel like I'm living it. And then that can make you feel bad. I don't want you to feel bad. I want you to feel like, wow, that is my potential. That's what I've always known, because usually we always know it, but we're too afraid to go after it. And that's the beauty, is human design can give you the courage to go after your real potential. Sometimes we don't know what our potential is. It's like, oh, I feel like there's more to me. Like I could be more. I could do more with this life, in this life, but I don't really know what it is. And then someone reads you a description of this and you're like, that's it. I couldn't put words to it before, but that's it. Okay, but now how do I get there? And the trap is to read the potential and try to push toward that and then feel like a failure when it doesn't go well. Like that is where a lot of people end up. Oh, I read the thing, but I don't know how to be that. So what human design tells us and what conditioning allows us to understand, if we look at it, we say, okay, if this is what I'm supposed to feel like, if this is kind of my potential, then what's keeping me from my potential? What is standing in the way? What conditioning is there? And that's what I kind of want to break down today, is typical conditioning for manifestors, because that's how we start to use human design as a map to help us realize our potential. That is what it's all about. That is the entire game here. It isn't a fortune cookie. It is a personal development tool to help you live out your potential in this life, to be the best version of yourself that you could possibly be, to be even better than you thought you could be, and to start to really feel a connection to your greater purpose in this life. That's the potential that human design gives us, but you have to do the work. And the work is the deconditioning. Now, traditional human design will tell you that deconditioning takes 7 years. And I've explained this on the show before, but I'll mention it again in case anybody is new here, which, by the way, hi, if you're new, that if you're new here and you haven't heard me explain it like this, then it's worth repeating. The reason that they say 7 years it takes to decondition is because cellular turnover takes 7 years. And so if you think about it, if I started to follow strategy and authority, follow my design, decondition myself, start being less of my conditioned self and more of my potential, that is what we're talking about here with deconditioning. If I start to go into the things that are keeping me from being this potential, and I make that my life, and I follow my design for the rest of my days, then in 7 years, there won't be a cell in my body that remembers being me today or being me yesterday. Not a cell. You're literally a different person. That's where the 7-year thing comes from. So can you have tremendous growth and results and everything before you get to 7 years? Absolutely. Absolutely. You do not have to be doing this for 7 years to see benefits. But the difference is, and I noticed this, I am about 5 years, going on my year 5 in my experiment. So I'm not even at the 7-year mark, but I will tell you every year I notice that I have to do less. I am just being my design more. I am just riding through life being who I'm meant to be. Now, it's not all the time, but that's what comes from this. I'm very much less the Nicole I was 5 years ago and much closer to being my true authentic self. And I will absolutely give the space for that. There's still room for me to grow. And in 7 years, so in 2 more years, will I be different? I have no doubt that I will be different, that this will be more about like, this is just a natural way of who I am now, rather than something that I'm trying to be or actively having to do. And every day I have to actively do less to be who I am. And that's the work. I didn't just have this like, oh, I read it 5 years ago and now every day just gets easier. No, I do the work. I decondition every day. It's part of my life. And that's how we reach our potential. Okay. It is an active participation from us. It is not passive. Okay. So let's talk about manifestors here for just a moment. Let's talk about manifestors and what they are. So type tells us what our aura is. Like when we say the 5 types in human design, we're talking about aura. We're talking about your energetic frequency and the quality and style of your aura. What do other people feel from you energetically when they are around you? They feel a certain type of energy. Projectors have a very different energy than generators. Manifestors have very different energy from reflectors. It is a completely different feeling to the quality of energy that the person has from one type to the other. Now then, there's also high frequency and low frequency of that energy. Now, that's what our signature and not self themes tell us. That's why, so we're talking about manifestors. Manifestors have a signature of peace and a not self theme of anger. That really determines what people feel from us. So if you are a manifestor, you have what we call a repelling aura, a dense repelling aura. Now the word repelling sounds nasty and really negative, but it's not that. It's dense, it's big, it's powerful, it's very close to their body, and it pushes out. And I think of it like it's almost like it's clearing the way for all that they are to blaze a trail. To be able to go in a new direction, you might have to clear a path. And that's going to take some bold energy, right? To be the type of person that can say, I don't care if nobody's gone here before. Watch out because I'm coming through. I'll make my own path. So that's what that big, bold, repelling aura means to me. That's how I feel it. But you can feel a manifestor. It pushes back at you. And it can be off-putting, particularly if they are in anger. If they're in their not self, it's going to be an unpleasant feeling for everybody around them. You don't really want to be around an angry manifestor. It doesn't feel good. It feels very uncomfortable because their energy is so powerful. But in a peace, lovely. You want that person on your team. You want them leading you, right? But it can be destructive and it can just be uncomfortable. Okay? So this big personality that a manifestor has and this big aura that they're carrying, I want you to now think, let's talk about conditioning. Let's talk about where conditioning comes from. I want you to think about, so when we're all pretty much know at this point that the years from birth to 7 years old are the formative years. It is when our brain is the most malleable. It is before we have real reasoning in the brain, before the prefrontal cortex is formed. It is the time of where we're soaking everything in like a sponge. We soak in what people feel. We soak in what people are doing rather than even the things that they are saying. Oh, I felt that when I did that, they shut down. I felt that when I did that, I got in trouble or I made mom mad or she suddenly didn't really want to be around me. We have to be really careful with kids because they're not necessarily, in most cases, they're not doing this at all, telling us how they feel or how we made them feel. So what we do is they just start to take that in. They take in their experience and what is modeled for them, and then they may take that very personally. And depending on the child, how much of that becomes part of who they are. So now let's talk about what a manifestor is as a child. So a manifestor in that same time period of 0 to 7 years old, it has this repelling aura. How does that repelling aura make mom and dad feel? Or their siblings feel, or their teachers feel, or their stepdads feel, or the people at the store, or the babysitter, or the lady at church? How does it make them feel? Does it make them feel uncomfortable? When that kid gets upset, do other people feel it? Now let's tap on if that manifestor also has a defined ego, and this becomes a very willful child. That might get even more uncomfortable, right? What if it's an emotional manifestor child? So now when they get angry, they have really powerful emotions on top of it. Maybe they're just dealing with their wave and having a hard time with that and learning how to ride that wave as a kid. And their parent has an open emotional center. So they're amplifying that emotional sense that the manifestor kid has, plus the manifestors being a manifestor, which what do manifestors do? They blaze new trails. Manifestors have what we call a motor to the throat, motor directly or indirectly. Any of the four motors, the root, well, it won't be a sacral because they can't have a sacral or they'd be a manifesting generator. So it's either the root, the ego center, or the emotional center, the solar plexus. So those three motors, if they are connected to the throat directly or indirectly, so they could be root to spleen to throat, that is absolutely a manifestor. They have this connection, it means that they have manifesting capability. It means that there's energy within them that can get out into action and communication through their throat center without anybody else's help. And there's no sacral, so there's no response. They don't have to wait for a damn thing in this life to make them move. They're not designed to do that. They're not designed to wait for anything. They're designed to want something and go do it. To want something and go get it, and not to tell anybody, because they don't have the same need for other people. And I want to be real careful with that, because this can honestly be damaging, where I think a lot of manifestors can feel isolated already, and sometimes that can make them feel worse. It's just an energetic thing that they don't need help from anybody else. So now there might be nuances to this. They might have a 3740 channel of community, which would make them more apt to want to connect with people. They might be a 4 line where there's also that extra connection there. There's lots of nuances to the chart. So I never want to say anything that's a hard and fast rule. But in general, they're more individual and they are more interested in their own stuff, and they kind of like to be left alone and they need their alone time. So again, we have that manifestor child that maybe is not asking mom or not checking in and just going and doing what they want. This is the kid that's maybe running away on the playground. This is the kid that maybe is doing things that they were told not to do because it's just so ingrained in them that I just want that thing and I'm meant to go after my thing. They do know that from an early age, but it might have been punished. They might have been labeled a problem. They might have been labeled a rebel. They may have been called difficult. They might have been told that they didn't listen and punished for that and ridiculed for it. All of these things, that's the conditioning. So what do they learn? Let's talk a little bit about how conditioning works from just a bit of a higher level, not even necessarily about the manifestors for just a moment. When we're little, we develop strategies to survive. And this is very much, these strategies are our conditioning. They're a result of our conditioning. So when that manifestor child is labeled difficult, is told that they don't listen, and they get in trouble for it, or they get punished for it, or the teacher sends home a note, or they get sent to the principal's office, or their grandmother won't watch them anymore because they're just too much for them, then what they do is internally, they're not vocalizing it and telling anybody because maybe they don't feel like it's safe, but they're hurt. And they still, even though they don't need people the same way, they want to be loved. Kids want to be loved. Kids need to be loved and nurtured by their friends, by their family, by the people who are supposed to love them. And if they're not getting that, then they might start to adapt and develop a strategy to survive. What are the strategies that keep you alive in childhood? Those become the strategies that you employ later on in life unconsciously, and they can be the things that hold you back. So what are the two most common conditioning strategies for manifestors that I've seen? So I always say that there are 4 key strategies that will keep you stuck. They are perfectionism, people pleasing, procrastination, and playing small. The 2 I see most often with manifestors are people pleasing and playing small. So they learn to try to get people to love them by people pleasing, by putting their needs, their thoughts, their wishes, their dreams, the things that they really want to do on the side because they don't want to ruffle feathers. And they play nice and they kiss up sometimes, or they play it safe. And what does that do? Usually it makes them angry, at least eventually. They get real pissed about it because they know how wrong it is. They're literally not meant to act like this. They're not meant to care what anybody thinks, because when they care what somebody else thinks, they might not do the big, bold, different thing that they're meant to do. And then we all miss out because that's their role in this life, in the world, in the collective. We need the manifestors out there doing new things. Why? Because those become the things that the rest of us do. They become the people that we follow. They do things and show us what's possible. Well, how much are we not getting to believe is possible by the manifestor who won't really say what they think or really do what they feel is necessary or what they feel called to do because they don't want people to not like them, because they don't want to make people uncomfortable, because they don't want to feel unloved? You take a manifestor who has an open G center, they're really going to feel that. I mean, this is a recipe for people pleasing if they weren't empowered as children to be who they were. If they were punished at all for being who they were, if they were made to feel like their energy was confronting to their parents or to their teachers or things like that, it can really fall into the people-pleasing pattern. And then the other one is playing small. There's like a cousin of people-pleasing, but playing small, it's like, I'm afraid of my power, because they know it's big. They feel it's big. And when they've gone out, they have exercised that power and they've put it out in the world, it may have been met with resistance because it threatens people. They have to learn to deal with that. Those are not your people. Those people who are afraid of your power, not your people. So this is how conditioning works. And this is how later in life and in business, those strategies of people pleasing and playing small start to show up. The other thing I'll add that's not a strategy here, but a common conditioning of a manifestor is they don't want to build anything because they know that they're going to hate it eventually. So it's just like, oh, why bother? But if the urge is really strong, if they really want the thing bad enough, on some level they know the act of creating this thing will be enough. And they have to be their own voice in their head, or somebody like me who reminds them of that. So like, that's not how this works for you. You just have to build the thing because it feels right. It's not about how long it will last. It's about the act of creating it. That's it. You got to let it just be that. And that's where it becomes something that no one can know how far it'll go or where it'll end up or how big it'll be or what the impact will be. But you just have to trust that if you feel called as a manifestor, that it is correct for you. So these are the main conditioning factors of manifestors. And they show up in their life and in their business. They show up with them not standing up and showing their power online. They might be cowering to a boss. They might be playing small where they're not really going after what they feel is right because they don't trust themselves enough, because they haven't exercised that muscle enough in their lives where they've seen it go right. So we have to relearn that. And that's what deconditioning is. It is unlearning all of those teachings from childhood and from, and it doesn't stop at 7. Those things continue and they just reinforce the beliefs that we have and they get more and more ingrained. That's why if somebody is 15 years old and they start doing personal development and they start being taught about beliefs and all the things that we talk about on this show and all of the personal development podcasts and books out there, if they start doing that work at 15, they're going to be able to unravel their stuff probably pretty quickly. Kids who go to therapy and talk about their feelings and stuff like that, they're going to have fewer problems later on. It doesn't erase the first 7 years, but what it does is it's so much easier to course correct early in the journey than it is when you're in your 40s, which is what a lot of people I am a Gen Xer millennial cusper. So our generation steeped in conditioning for sure. We are just loaded with it. Most of us didn't get into this until our 30s. And it's okay. But future generations can start this earlier. But we have to unlearn all of that stuff from all the years, from all the experiences. And we have to go into the emotionality of this, because you might be sitting here saying like, well, I know this stuff about me and I feel like I've deconditioned, but I still feel like it's hard for me to live up to my potential. I can't say anything in a blanket way where the answer would be the same for everybody. But in general, I would say that, well, then you need to look at your emotional attachments to those conditioned responses, to those experiences that you've had. Because if we're just looking at it cognitively, where we're like, oh, I'm telling myself that this thing isn't true. And if you're telling yourself that this thing isn't true and it's still sticking, then you have some emotional connection to the belief. You have some emotional connection to the conditioning and either the conditioner or the experience that you had. And you need to process the emotion that is connecting you to the event, to the experience, to the feeling, to that belief. And that's the deeper work. That's what I do inside Business by Design. We do all of that. Like, we have a whole deconditioning library. I use EFT tapping for deconditioning to help that process go so much faster. And so that is what I do with all of my clients. That is my bread and butter. I would say you come for the human design, but when you get behind the doors, you'll see that most of the work is the deconditioning work. And tapping will move you so fast. Breath work is also wonderful for that too. But tapping I find to be incredible for this type of work. But I hope that this episode inspired you to look at your own journey. If you're a manifestor, how close are you to that potential? And how are you still fighting some of that conditioning? If you are looking to decondition faster, we have two things. I have a free deconditioning guide, which you can check out, where I go through all the centers and everything and basic deconditioning, how you decondition each of the 9 centers. We have a free guide on that. DM me on Instagram. I'm at Nicole Laino Official. DM me the word decondition and we'll send you the guide there, or go to NicoleLaino.com/decondition. You can get it there. Or if you want some of those tappings, we actually created a little bundle for you for the tappings on type. So we have that. We have like a little tapping bundle that we put together, kind of like a starter pack for deconditioning. If you're interested in that, just DM me the word tapping on Instagram. I'm at Nicole Laino Official, and we'll send you the link for that. That is a paid offer, so just so you know that. But if you're interested in that, DM me the word tapping and you can get that bundle right there. We'll send you the link for it. I hope you loved this episode. I appreciate you. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you always. Remember, in order to have an unshakable business, you must first become an unshakable human. So thanks for letting us help you become unshakable with human design, everybody. We'll see you next time. If you love this episode and you're a fan of the show, please show us the love on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you're listening to the show, and leave us a review. And if you'd like to connect with other entrepreneurs on their human design journey, join our free Facebook community, Human Design for Entrepreneurs. Go to NicoleLaino.me/podcast links to join the group, book a human design reading with me, or access our free human design resources. We'll see you there.